Welcome to Mind Body Monday, and thanks all for joining me. In today's Mind Body Monday, you're going to learn about H. pylori. And if you haven't heard of that, stay tuned. And I'm going to share with you my functional medicine and natural approaches that you wish you had known about had you gone down before you'd gone down the conventional route, possibly. So let's look at that. I'm going to share with you some surprising downsides that Helicobacter can cause. I'm going to describe to you exactly what it is, what it does, and how to fix it. I'm going to share with you 4 specific tests to test for H. pylori, and a test that you can even do at home will set you up to know, is this what's going on in you? And finally, I'm going to share with you my 4 or 5 different supplements to help you put this behind you, heal your gut for good. And I'm going to share with you my H. pylori diet. Okay, see the new book, H. pylori diet. So let's get started. Normally, I like to kick off Mind Body Monday with a story about one of my patients as it relates to the topic I'm teaching. But today is different. I'm actually going to share a little story about myself. So it's a drop personal because this is a true story that happened to me and my experience with H. pylori. So before I jump in, when I was talking about H. pylori today with someone, they said, well, what's that? So most people know, but if you don't, H. pylori stands for Helicobacter pylori. It is a bacteria that is pretty hardy and highly adaptive bacteria that burrows holes, literally holes into the stomach lining, where it causes a lot of damage by inflaming the stomach lining, and many symptoms related to digestion and not related to digestion as well. About 50 to 70% of the population actually suffer from this condition, H. pylori, and its results as well. So what it does, once it burrows its way into the stomach lining, it damages and inflames the parietal cells of the stomach. These are the stomach cells that produce a very strong acid, hydrochloric acid, which has a pH of about 2 or 3 in the stomach, which is fantastic to protect the immune system. I'm going to describe that a little bit more. And what this bacteria does, it actually changes the pH in the stomach to make it more alkaline. So from pH 2 or 3, it shoves it up to a 5 or a 6, which is relatively more alkaline, and that comes with a whole host of problems while it remains perfectly happy doing X damage to the body. So what most people don't know is that 90% of duodenal ulcers, that's the upper intestine ulcers, come from H. pylori, and about 80% of gastric ulcers come from this bacteria as well. And research has also shown that there's a tremendous increased risk of stomach cancer for untreated, symptomatic, long-term H. pylori. So this is something really important to identify, and I'm going to show you how to do that, and important to treat effectively. So people ask, well, is this little critter contagious? Well, the answer is yes. And it's spread through sort of what's called the oral fecal route. So it's very, very important to wash your hands properly. Everyone's pretty good at that by now. But there's another incentive to really wash your hands well before you put your hands in your mouth or you eat food, or if you with young kids or children, because kids could be very infected with this condition with H. pylori as well. Even though they may be symptom-free, they could be carriers, and unsuspecting hosts could pick it up. So around kids, animals, etc., it's a good idea to just keep your hands clean without getting neurotic about it. So coming back to my story. So sometime back, I needed some dental surgery, and I took the recommended antibiotics. But 2 days into the treatment, I couldn't tolerate the antibiotics anymore. I had excruciating lower back pain, kidney pain, etc. I needed to stop. But dental surgery is surgery, and I needed to protect myself. and prevent infection. So I tried another one, and that one was even worse. That antibiotic was even worse. So I just stopped antibiotic treatment, and this was already post-dental surgery. So my system was somewhat vulnerable, relatively speaking. So I took a deep dive, did some pretty extensive research, how to support myself, how to advance my healing, prevent infections. And also those was only the first of a series of treatments that I needed. So I didn't want to go back to the antibiotic treatment again because I had such a poor, it had such a poor impact on me the first time. So I did find an effective treatment. I used it that time, and I used it other times as well. And that was a helpful turning point in really understanding and taking a deeper dive in the place of antibiotics. And please, I must just say at this point, whatever you glean from today's Mind Body Monday, always work with a caring functional medicine doctor who can guide you through whatever treatment options or choices you make, so you stay safe and you stay true to doing the right thing, whatever that is for you. So I was later diagnosed with H. pylori, and I did not want to do the conventional treatment. The conventional treatment is either called the triple treatment, or even now there's the quadruple treatment, and watch this space until that goes up to 5, 6, or 7. Who knows where it's going? But bottom line is the triple treatment or the quadruple treatment relies on a cocktail of some powerful medications. And that includes antibiotics, generally speaking, 1 or 2 kinds of antibiotics, something called PPIs, which are proton pump inhibitors. These prevent acid production in the gut, which, remember, H. pylori has also done. And when the stomach acidity goes up, meaning less acidic, a whole host of problems can occur. And in a previous Mind Body Monday, check that out, I did a deeper dive in long-term use of antacids and proton pump inhibitors and options to help someone who has heartburn or reflux or whatnot. So you can check that out. Also, I did a deeper dive in a previous video on antibiotic use and demonstrating that it's one of the most powerful gut disruptors of the microbiome and the environment in the gut. So as important as life-saving as they are or can be, it has to be used very judiciously, appropriately for each person and each person's situation. This is why it's a good thing to work with a conscious functional medicine doctor who can guide you through the process. So the triple treatment is those 2 antibiotics, a proton pump inhibitor, something like Nexium or Prilosec or something like that. And then sometimes Pepto-Bismol, something to soothe the gut lining from any possible irritation. And for people who can't handle the PPIs, then they'd use histamine, antihistamine. What this does is also regulate the acid in the gut. So it's a pretty comprehensive treatment. And from what I've seen for myself and my patients, generally speaking, if your H. pylori results are high, 1 round is insufficient the first time. So it's a lot of exposure to a lot of treatment, a lot of gut disruptors that may not necessarily support you 100%. And for someone like myself who didn't want to go that route, I've created an option and guided successfully my patients on the program that I took myself through. So one of the interesting things about the PPIs, the proton pump inhibitors, why they're used, those are the ones that prevent acid secretion in the gut. They're used even though you don't really want a high pH in the gut, because I'll talk about that shortly, it undermines the immune system. But it also is shown to concentrate the effect of the antibiotics in the stomach particularly, which is what's needed in this treatment. But the downside is less acidity in the stomach. Now, let me just talk about that for a moment, because when you understand this, you'll also be able to understand the nutritional approaches I'm going to suggest in a little bit. So the stomach acid environment normally is very corrosive, meaning if you were to take a drop of stomach acid and just put it on your hand, it will actually give you an ulcer. It will burn your hand. There's a pH of about 2, which is very acidic. Now, that's fantastic if it's not on your hand and in your stomach. Why? Because in that place, it can very efficiently digest your food, specifically protein, because a low pH is needed to cleave the amino acid bonds, the protein bonds, the amino acids in your protein food, and provide for a fuller, complete protein digestion. So if the acid is too high, there's an impairing of protein digestion. And as a result, there are other minerals that are blocked as well from being absorbed or created in the gut, like B12, like certain B vitamins, other B vitamins, zinc as well, and iron. There are people with H. pylori who are anemic as a result of the effects of H. pylori because of the higher stomach acid. So the iron cannot be sufficiently extracted from the diet if you're having an iron-rich diet. So as a result, a person can be feeling fatigued, weak, tired, even though they're getting their sleep. Brain fog is something that they'll may experience as well, and I'm going to touch on that shortly. So right from the get-go, having a healthy, low stomach acid is fantastic because it also protects the body from viruses, bacteria, protozoa, and all sorts of nasties that come into our stomach through our eating, etc. Then they are just nuked right out of the gate by the low stomach acid. And this is one of the incredible ways our Creator is protecting us from the inside out. However, this bug has managed to find its way in, bore a hole into the stomach, hard out, turn off the switches for the acid-making cells, the parietal cells in the gut, create havoc, inflammation, and all sorts of things while it's ensconced healthily, safely deep within the stomach tissues, and the person is left with a whole variety of symptoms. And I'm going to get to those shortly. So having a healthily low stomach acid is a good thing. And that's sort of the paradox with the conventional treatment is the PPIs, the proton pump inhibitors, actually also turn off the acid production in the cell, in the stomach lining and the parietal cells. And that also has long-term effects on our health. It's also one of the causes of osteoporosis, osteopenia, and under mineralization of the body, etc. And I mentioned in the previous Mind Body Monday episode, I discussed that. So therefore, addressing this issue with H. pylori is very, very important. And one of my patients also just today, wasn't a patient of mine, it was a patient of someone in my clinic, who mentioned that her 30-year-old daughter had gone through the conventional approach, had terrible reaction to the antibiotic, and had then found another more functionally orientated doctor who was able to put her onto a different program, and within a relatively short space of time was symptom-free. I asked them, did they do a H. pylori test afterwards? And they said they hadn't. So I sort of just bookmarked that for myself. That is really, really important to do a pre-test and a post-test, even if you're symptom-free, to make sure you've eradicated this completely, because it can be hiding out. And when the system is low, it can come back again. And I want to avoid that happening in the long term. So what I did is I took myself onto my H. pylori diet, which I'm going to share with you now, and that pretty much took care of it completely. So let's go back one step. How do you know if you've got H. pylori? So number one, here is a home checklist that you can just do and inquire of yourself. Do you suffer from chronic heartburn or reflux? Yes, there are many causes for heartburn and reflux. This is one of them. Do you feel a low-grade nausea all the time? You're not pregnant and there's no other reason explainable that you're just feeling like yuck. Is there a lot of regular burping? even related to food or not related to food, and sometimes even a burping with an unpleasant taste as well. That could be also sort of a bacterial or a protozoa infection, but it could relate to H. pylori as well. Here's another one, feeling full from hardly eating anything, feeling just full and bloated. And even after eating something really small, you just feel like, oh, I'm stuffed, I can't eat anything more. This is because the stomach lining is super inflamed because of H. pylori. And obviously, if there's any stomach pain, abdominal pain, or discomfort, that is another sign. So if you checked any two of these symptoms, then it could be that H. pylori is lurking inside your stomach and you haven't yet put your finger on it. So what's the next step? So before the next step, I mentioned to you about brain fog. So something very interesting here, that when the stomach acid drops to, when the stomach acid pH rises, so it becomes less acidic, then the stomach acid, which is needed to break down food, causes a disruption in neurotransmitters as well, specifically dopamine, serotonin. Now, dopamine and serotonin are king and queen. I don't know who's who, but they are royal indeed, because they are responsible for our happiness, neurochemically that is, our positive outlook on life, our motivation. They help our sleep patterns, they help our appetite, and they give us a positive, upbeat look on life. Now, these two neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, over 50%, that's half of dopamine, is made in the gut through the microbiome. And over 95% of serotonin is made in the gut and not the brain. So they act in the brain as well as every cell in the body, but they're made in the gut. So you can see now why having a disrupted microbiome through extensive antibiotic use or improper eating, or this H. pylori playing havoc with how we digest food, or rather how we don't digest food, how that can impact our mental well-being. In fact, PubMed had a research article that shows direct correlation between H. pylori and depression. So that is something just to put in the hopper when you're looking at a holistic, integrated way to treat mood disorders as well. So let's look at the 4 conventional tests that anybody who's checked at least 2 of those home test things should go off and do a conventional test. I encourage my patients always to do testing, because what you can only manage what you measure. And it's so important to get a baseline for absolute everything you can test without getting neurotic about it, because you can track your progress. So the first test is called a urea breath test. You simply blow into a bag of sorts, and that way the gases are picked up, which the H. pylori produces an excess of. The other is a stool test looking for antigens related to this. And then, of course, there's the endoscopy, upper endoscopy, and most often with endoscopy comes a biopsy. That's the patient's request or the doctor's recommendation. And with that is absolutely the gold standard to confirm H. pylori with a biopsy through the endoscopy process. But to start off with, a breath test is the softest landing. To get that on the map, you'll undergo whatever treatment you so choose, but test again afterwards, and your numbers must be coming down. They don't come down. Continue your journey until you have a full and complete resolution. So let's look at some functional medicine approaches to healing H. pylori and all the downsides that H. pylori can cause in the body. The first thing to really recognize is that this is a hardy bug and can take some time. So persistence is important. There's another quality that's absolutely critical to really nuke this one, and that is, well, put it this way. A person who's unwell or a person who is in the healing process, recovering from some condition, is called a patient, because they need to be patient with the healing process. So the second quality that's required is just to be patient. And when you set your body up for success, you can accelerate your healing and trusting that your body is healing when you're doing the right things. And the pathway I'm going to share with you is going to set you up for the quickest way to put this H. pylori behind you and improve your immune system, help your gut, and just give you back the life that may be compromised as a result of the H. pylori. So the first thing is the H. pylori diet. Now, there are a few factors in the diet. The first one is your approach to eating, and this relates to what's called time-restricted eating, also known as intermittent fasting. This is something I personally practice, and I've seen some of my patients get it horribly wrong. And I've seen, with proper guidance, people doing phenomenally well. In fact, that 30-year-old I mentioned to you, one of the things that her doctor recommended she do is to do intermittent fasting. And that alone alleviated most of the symptoms, because eating in this way, time-restricted eating, according to different times of eating and not eating, gives your body a break, gives your digestive system a break, and in that it can regroup, restart, and address some of the underlying inflammation and discomfort without having to deal with digesting all the time and taxing the digestive system. So that's an approach. It may not necessarily be right for everybody at all stages of life, but just know about it as a helpful tool in addressing H. pylori. The second approach in general is what's called a plant-based diet. This is a phenomenal approach to eating that is deeply, deeply researched. It's rich in phytochemicals and nutrients from plants that help to turn off inflammation, turn off disruptive genes in the body that cause all sorts of inflammation and illness in the body. And it's really a long-term approach to eating that will give you everything you need and more, and feeling great as well. So you've got intermittent fasting, you've got a plant-based diet in general. And once again, everybody's different. I believe in what's called biochemical individuality. We all have different faces, we all have different fingerprints. And even though they're general dietary rules for everybody, like stopping junk food, cutting down or out of sugar completely, these things are known to be distressing and positively harmful for the body. There's no benefit whatsoever aside from just to feel good in the moment and a whole array of chronic illness in its wake if this is continued as a lifestyle choice. So stop the garbage, the processed oils, etc., and their added sugars and sodas. All this will set a person up for accelerated health, vitality, and longevity at the same time. So that's a general approach to functional medicine's approach to eating, my particular practice myself, and what I guide my patients through. That being said, by way of intro, let's dive into some more practical things you can do in your diet to really put H. pylori back behind you. Number one, it's got to be probiotic-rich foods, right? Probiotic-rich foods just nourish your microbiome and set your body up for success in healing absolutely everything. So foods like kefir, kombucha, fermented foods, fermented vegetables, sauerkraut, pickles, etc., natural fermented pickles is the way to go. There are many probiotic drinks in the market that have excellent hashgacha, taste delicious, and are good for you. Read labels and add some probiotic-rich foods in your diet. Now, there are specific supplements that are probiotic. I'm going to get to them because there are three specific probiotic supplements that are important to include in your diet. Right now, I'm focusing just on the H. pylori diet. So it's probiotic-rich foods daily, at least once or twice a day. That's what I do personally. Breakfast, lunch, and supper. I take a tablespoon or two of sauerkraut or some fermented food or drink that I've made. And when I run out, I'll buy something and quickly make my own again. And then For those of you who eat a fish-based diet as well, you can have a 20 to 30% of fish protein, preferably a wild-caught salmon where possible, or good quality sardine, or some protein like that, which is rich in omega-3s, which is helpful for turning off the inflammation in the gut. Then adding in some flax seeds, chia seeds, and if you can find them as well, hemp seeds. This combination are fantastic prebiotic fibers, which help to make your probiotic foods and supplements even more effective. And then, of course, there are berries like strawberries, blueberries, bilberries, blackberries. All these small little colorful berries are rich in phytochemicals, anthocyanins, which are different phytochemicals that help to turn off inflammation in the body and help to heal your body and do a lot of goodness, not only for your gut, but for your heart health, for cognition, for brain health, for energy, etc. Now, this is a piece in the diet that a lot of people miss, and that is cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables are like broccoli, kohlrabi, onions, garlic, cauliflower. These foods are high in sulfur, and there's a specific compound that I'm going to mention as a supplement that is rich in broccoli sprout, but also rich in these foods. So if you're healing from H. pylori, just make sure, if you can, to have some of these cruciferous vegetables in as well, as they add a very important healing element to your diet. Super. So what are the things we discussed, the things you should definitely be eating more of every day? Let's look at the things that you should probably avoid or stay away from. Number one is alcohol. Alcohol disrupts the gut membrane. Caffeine in excess is also a gut dysregulator. If a person is too acidic, so that could be an irritator for some people. Carbonated beverages, especially the sugar-loaded ones, are not a good idea. Carbonated beverages in general, if someone's got nausea or burping a lot, is not recommended. Is taking in more carbonic acid in the body and creating unfavorable digestive environment. Spicy foods should be avoided at this time because it can irritate a sensitive and inflamed gut lining. And of course, any refined foods, refined carbohydrates are no good as well. You want to have appropriately fiber-rich nutrients that will help the healing. So those are some of the items to eat, some of the items to stay away from, to set yourself up for success, and also approaching your eating as from a time-restricted eating perspective, but also from a plant-based diet perspective, if this is going to sit for you. So the second key piece in this holistic puzzle to help you heal from H. pylori, or really any gut issue, but I'm focusing on H. pylori, is to manage your stress levels proactively and consciously. It does not mean just, sitting on the couch reading a book. That is perhaps a low stress activity, but it's not going to reset the autonomic nervous system as some of these activities that I'm going to mention to you now. The purpose of lowering your stress levels is to lower stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which can inflame the body. And aside from premature aging, they also disrupt the digestive system. And they do that by putting the body in what's called sympathetic nervous system overdrive. That's sort of the fight and flight nervous system where we primed for action. And that is extremely exhausting in the long term. So sitting and reading a book is a good chill and a good activity, but it's not going to be turning down the sympathetic nervous system and raising the parasympathetic nervous system like good quality, deep, restorative sleep will do. So making sure sleep is on the map. I personally sleep with an Oura ring every night that tracks my sleep metrics, looks at my breathing, my heart rate variability, my pulse, the quality, my REM sleep. So as I mentioned, you can only manage what you measure. So when I wake up at some point in the day, I look at my metrics and course correct through my day to make sure my physiology is happy and settled, even though I may feel I'm fine. But sometimes I'm not able to read the subtleties that instrumentation is able to read. And as I learn that, I could attune my nervous system to pick up those subtle changes. But I just still can't get a metric on it, like what is my heart rate variability? What exactly is my waking pulse? And these are important metrics to manage your stress. The other is deep breathing exercises. And I personally practice the Wim Hof method in breathing. I practice meditation, and I've been using my ice bath the last 2.5 years. Every single day, sun, rain, whatever it is, it's freezing cold, it's uncomfortable every single day. And you could think, what? Ice bath? That's stressful, right? Stressful. And there's something called hermetic stress. Stress that is positive. And the rebound effect of conscious kind of stress is strengthening the body, strengthening the resolve, mental toughness. There are also tremendous physiological benefits, lowering cortisol, lowering stress levels, reducing insulin, reducing glucose levels, a whole host of wonderful benefits. So even ending your shower with a coolish shower until you're ready for cold is also good practice, where you can get some of these benefits in miniature. So managing your stress levels is incredibly important for treating H. pylori long term, because it will reset your autonomic nervous system. So dealing with your emotions in a healthy, wholesome way, be it getting emotional support, be it journaling, be it whatever strategy you're going to adopt. Face them, deal with them, get the support in a loving, caring way to support you at the highest level. Obviously, socializing with people who are emotionally nourishing, you, them, and then you, is also a big key and research base to help longevity, health, and well-being, and turn off those inflammatory markers that will irritate the gut and slow healing. So we've looked at food approaches, specific foods to eat, specific foods to avoid, and I've shared with you the second approach is looking at stress levels from a conscious place, making these lifestyle choices. And let's now look at some of the supplements to suggest for H. pylori specifically. So whether you make your own probiotics or you're just going to buy them, either way is fine. It's certainly more economical in the long term to make your own, but if you can't, just get the probiotic supplements and bring them into your diet. There are 3 specific kinds of probiotics that are research-based to help against H. pylori specifically. And these are the lactic acid probiotics. And the 3 are Lactobacillus fermentum, Lactobacillus casei, and brevis. These 3 forms of probiotics help against H. pylori. And in a previous Mind Body Monday, I took a deep dive in probiotics and your gut health. So check out that video to really understand how to use probiotics in general, even though these 3 are very important specifically to heal H. pylori. Research has shown you need a diverse microbiome to really go the long road and get all the benefits. But for the initial treatment, focus on these 3 specifically. So the next is a supplement that I personally used when I had H. pylori. I didn't take a probiotic supplement because I'm making my own sauerkraut and pickles and kombucha. Is something called mastic gum. Mastic gum is actually a resin from a Mediterranean tree, and it has profound healing effects in the gut. So I took that in the morning on an empty stomach, and in the evening again on an empty stomach twice a day, and that I did for 12 weeks. And within a few days, I was already feeling significantly better. This is a key molecule that I want to share with you. A lot of people don't know about it. It's an extremely powerful healer for many, many different conditions. However, I want to focus on its use in H. pylori specifically, and that's called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is derived mainly from 3-day-old or young broccoli sprouts. It is a rich in a sulfur compound that really dramatically helps to heal the gut lining and makes H. pylori uncomfortable word is. And that's the strategy. And also, there are no downsides that I know about for sulforaphane, and it has many, many health benefits. So I included sulforaphane in my healing program. Now, some of my patients have really sensitive gut, especially if there's pre-existing digestive problems before they had the H. pylori, or as a result of having it and left unchecked. Then it's important to add some sort of soother to the gut as well. And that's why conventional treatments uses some Pepto-Bismol or something like that to soothe the gut lining. And I would recommend, what I took myself is a fresh extract of aloe vera. Aloe vera, according to PubMed research, also has antimicrobial activities. It has over 200 or plus phytochemicals that are very healing for the body in general. Specifically helps the gut lining heal from H. pylori as well. So I've shared with you my top supplements. There are many, many more supplements that a person can use. The focus here is to use the quickest, most cost-effective strategy for each particular person to get their results. So this is why it's so important to find someone who can guide you on a very personalized program for healing your body and healing your gut specifically. And it's a little bit like, just taking a pair of prescription glasses off the chemist shelf, by actually going in and getting your prescription tested and getting the right prescription for your eye condition. And that way you'll be able to see 60, 20/20 vision. Same thing here with healing. You want to find someone who has a very comprehensive approach to healing that includes your body, your mind, your emotions, your soul, and really has a very integrative approach to getting you the results you want for the long term. So that is the functional medicine approach, the way I see it at this time, to really, really help heal H. pylori. I took myself onto this program. I did the H. pylori diet. I tightened up my already healthy eating program. I made some course corrections. I added these supplements, and within a few days, I was right as I was going to say rain, but I don't know actually what that means. Right as the sun, really, just feeling fantastic with a happy gut and feeling happy all over without the downsides of the triple, quadruple treatment as well. So thanks again for joining me on Mind Body Monday. Just remember, Mind Body Monday is where self-care is the heart of healthcare. All you need to do is take one small step in the direction of health and healing in mind, body, and soul. And I'll see you next time.